How's it, Oaks? Welcome back. Well, I've had a long day. That was nice. Went to the zoo to decide what animal I'm going to be working with for my research project for animal behavior. And I think I'm going to work with orangutans. That's going to be cool. But yeah, then also I've got this conference going on at my university, and we're required to attend these evening services, so evening meetings. It's been a long day, but what I need, some lovely tea and wet Breams to relax at the end of a long day. Here's my dustbin. Outside for some reason. Right. There we go. Cheers. It's hot. Alright. Where are we up to today? Chapter 24. Daktari. Daktari. Doctors are not my best friends, but they have their uses. Dr. Williams in Harare looked at me and said, "You've got pneumonia and malaria. You'll have to go to hospital, Bill." You know I'm not going there. I believe as the blacks do, one only goes to hospital to die. Well then, can I have your word that you'll rest for 5 days? Definitely, I replied. I'll go right to bed today. And I did. I drove 4.5 hours down into the Zambezi Valley and set up camp in the deep shade of a Natal mahogany tree on the edge of the Mana Pools campground. It was my favorite campsite, and Godfrey the receptionist usually kept it for me. I had a great view of the river and of everything that was going on in the campground. New visitors were just as entertaining as the animals. At sundown, Mazoe, the big elephant bull, came by for a visit. He scratched himself on the mahogany and then ambled around my campsite, picking up seed pods. After about 10 minutes, he went over to a caravan where an old couple had set up camp. I put on my sarong and a shirt. I knew Mazoe was up to something. He backed up to the caravan and started to scratch his rump so violently that the one wheel of the caravan was coming off the ground. The old lady inside started to scream, and the man opened the door, then quickly shut it again. I walked towards Mazoe, talking the whole time, and he stopped scratching. "Come on over to my tree and scratch. You are too strong to mess with a small box on wheels." He stood like a great monument, just looking at me, and then went over to pick up another seed pod. When he'd left, the old couple came out and thanked me. I told them a bit about Mazoe and how harmless he really was. I could see they were not in the mood to test that. Each day had its own specialness, and the next day didn't disappoint. I lay on my stretcher, letting the drugs take their effect. From where I lay, I could see a herd of elephant cows and calves on the other side of an open field. I was watching them through my land telescope when I heard a greeting behind me. "G'day, mate." I turned and 2 Australian men were standing there with their cameras, also watching the herd. "Good morning," I replied. "Would you like a closer look at the herd?" I pointed to the land telescope. "Nah, we thought we'd go over and take a few pics." "I wouldn't do that," I warned. "Those cows don't take kindly to strangers coming near their babies, and there's one real mean bitch in there too." I got the look from both of them, and they marched off towards the herd. In order to see better, I got out of my bed and in my sarong climbed an anthill so as to be able to see without missing a thing. I watched as the boys crept up to the herd. Only problem was, the wind was blowing from them to the herd the whole time. so without looking they knew where the boys were. The one took his camera and was snapping away at a young calf, when the mean one came charging out of a side bush and grabbed them around the neck. She ran with him, dragging him by the neck between her front legs. Every time she took a step, she managed to kick him. As they went by an anthill, of which there are many at minor pools, she stopped kicking him. She dropped him kicking. It's got punctuation in a weird place. Sorry. Try that again. As they went by an anthill, of which there are many at minor pools, she dropped him, kicking him again with her back legs, and then spun around. He was wide awake and managed to crawl around the other side of the anthill and keep on the other side every time she came around. After a couple times around the anthill, the old cow got tired and left. While the one chap was getting to know the elephants on a more physical basis, the other came running through my camp, fairly flying he was, looking for safety. Later came the other, every inch of his body covered by a bruise or scratch. He had both of his hands cupped together, carrying the broken bits of his camera. Didn't even stop to chat or look at me. It was Friday, and the weekenders were beginning to come into camp. I lay in bed watching them all unpacking. A lovely young lady came smiling over to my campsite. "Are you Masango?" she asked. "Yes, madam. Godfrey," and I already knew the rest. Whenever he liked someone, they wanted to see lions, he would send them to me. "And my name is Patsy." "All right, Patsy. I liked her too. I'll meet you here at about 9 tomorrow morning. No use going early because they haven't had their morning drink yet. Have your breakfast, then come over to my site." She went back to her campsite, and to my dismay, there were 11 people in her party. Next morning, all 11 came to my campsite, and we took off together downriver to where I knew a pride of lions were. Every party has one, and this one had the best, called Peter. He was a water pump salesman from Stewart and Lloyd's in Harare, and he was out to prove to the group how much he knew about the bush. Know all too well about these types. He named each bird and tree. He got some of their names right, but mostly not. As I was on no mission, I just kept quiet and wished he would too. When we got to the area where I thought we would see the lions, I had to call him back and make him walk behind me. Even then, he kept ducking off through the thick croton trees and would reappear way up ahead of the group. So Peter was not earning his keep that day. In spite of him, though, we saw the lions, and then they wanted to go swimming. I knew an island that had a large sandbar that was so shallow as to make it safe from crocodiles. Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't expect it, but in the Zambezi, there are these pretty substantial sandbars. Some of them, especially when you're in a boat, power boat, speedboat, you gotta be wary of them, otherwise you just get beached. But yeah, if they're shallow enough, you can hop out and swim because you can see if there are crocodiles coming. Done that a couple times. We splashed and played in the shallow water for an hour. Then Peter again led the group onto the island. I was towards the back of the group and noticed buffalo spoor going onto the island. "Peter, come back. There are buffalo up ahead." He ignored me and just kept going. I quickly took the group and split them into two. I put the one group in charge of a redhead chap and told them to get up this big mahogany tree. I took the other group and tried to get them up another tree. All the while, my senses are shrieking of danger. I tell my group to get up the tree, and then I run out towards Peter. I had only gone 10 steps when I heard the hooves thundering. Peter was about 30 meters in front of me, next to a small mahogany tree. "Climb the tree," I bellowed. Peter stood there, rooted to the spot, his legs slightly spread, his arms half raised, his mouth wide open, but no sound coming out. The buffalo came in from an angle and caught Peter between the legs. throwing him high into the sky. He did a complete slow 360 and landed on his back in the sand. The buffalo came charging in and hit Peter in the chest and started pushing him around in the sand like a dinky toy. Peter at least had the sense to hang on to the horns of the buffalo, and whenever the buffalo picked his head up, Peter was hanging on to him like grim death. During the whole episode, I was shouting at the buffalo, waving my arms, throwing sand, jumping up and down and trying to distract him. I don't know if it helped or not, but for a second the buffalo backed up. Peter let go and jumped behind a small screen of bushes. The buffalo charged right through the bushes and caught Peter in the chest again and pushed him around in the sand again. By this time, Peter's adrenaline was flowing nicely. So when the buffalo backed up to charge again, Peter, from a prone position, leapt up into a small tree and got away from the buffalo. Blood was spurting in an arc from his leg. "Put lots of pressure on your wound," I yelled. And then it was my turn to run. The buffalo charged me as he had no one else left to chase, and I had no trouble figuring out what to do. I ran back to where I left my group, and at the base of the tree was a Swedish lass. A big 6-foot Swedish lass. I grabbed her by the wrist, and later she told me that I jumped with her the first 8 feet of the tree. I don't remember it, but we both made it up the tree as the buffalo came thundering past under our branch. His tail had been pulled off by lions, and from the middle of his back to his tail had been mauled and scratched. No wonder he was in such a foul mood. As soon as he had gone past, I ran back to Peter. As I had helped Dad with numerous operations and had been a medic during the war, there was no hesitation. I jerked Peter out of the tree and lay him down. I whipped out my knife and cut off a big piece of his shirt, made a round pack and shoved it against the wound. I had seen people die in 5 minutes from a bullet wound through the femoral artery, but this didn't quite look like the femoral. I knew it had to be close, but he might have a chance, even though he didn't deserve it. However, I was not the one to judge. "Keep your legs closed tightly or you die, Peter. Hang on and I'll have a vehicle here soon." The whole group was now standing in a circle around Peter. There were no volunteers to follow the buffalo back to the mainland and go the 4 kilometers to the Land Rover, so I started to run. I ran possessed. If Peter died, I might not be allowed to take safaris in the area again, even though they were not a commercial package. There were many implications racing through my head that pushed me beyond my normal limits. I was so preoccupied that I didn't even notice the 4 elephant bulls resting in the shade of a group of mapani trees. I ran right between 2 of them before the one shook his head, flapping his ears noisily in warning. Within 30 minutes, I had the Land Rover back, and the group had by now carried Peter across the river to the mainland. We were all dropped off at the campground, and the one young man and another lass took Peter to Karoi, to the hospital. The German doctor told him that his femoral had been missed by less than a centimeter. His artery was tied off, and the next day Peter was back at camp. A hero, a new name, Daktari. Peter didn't even come to see me, laying on my stretcher the next day. But I got a better thanks from Patsy. She came by and just sat down on one of my stools. She didn't say anything, kind of like Mazoe, but she wasn't into seed pods. She just sat there being company with me. Then she took out her Bible and read to me a while. I went to sleep with visions of golden streets, the Zambezi River made of crystal, trees of life, lions and lambs, no more pain. Yeah, that's it for today. Yeah, there's always one, who's knows better than everyone else, knows better than the guide. I've been that one on a couple of occasions when I was younger. Thought I knew everything till I learned. Nothing quite as severe as a lesson as that, but yeah. honestly, guys, if you're going somewhere you've never been, especially out into the bush in Africa, listen to the locals. Listen to the guide. Listen to the experts. Don't be too proud to take advice. Anyway, that's all for today, and sleep well. Check you tomorrow. Cheers.